reality, open alcohol consumption in Wichita.
It's an idea the Wichita City Council is strongly considering for the Delano neighborhood. That is where we find Brock Wilson, who has a look at how close open alcohol consumption is to becoming a reality.
The city of Wichita is considering creating an alcohol consumption area right here in Delano. It's an idea Wichita City Council members say they're excited about, but there are still a few details they're trying to work out.
I think it would be good for the economy, and I think it'd be good for Delano.
The idea of an open alcohol consumption area in Delano is getting growing support.
I think it would bring more interest into the downtown area, especially in Delano.
Kevin Runkle owns a business in Delano and knows the value of having a lot of people walking the streets.
More interest in Delano would be really good.
A sentiment not lost on the Wichita City Council.
This isn't just about carrying a drink, it's about creating a walkable, connected neighborhood that supports small businesses, enhances tourism, and also gives people the ability to linger, live, and invest in Delano.
This week, the City Council approved the legal framework to create the common consumption area, but we're still at least a few weeks from this idea becoming a reality.
Staff would need some sort of direction as to exactly what the area would be that you're talking about, and then we would need to determine what security we would have, if any, where those signage would be. We'd have to lay out a map.
That's in addition to concerns from council members, including being mindful of the city's mental health crisis.
I want to make sure that we're not creating a space to attract some individuals that maybe might create some more issues or newer issues of some things that we're already working really hard to try to mitigate.
But as far as safety and responsibility goes, Kevin hopes everyone can be adults.
We all understand the laws, so as long as they're, abiding by the laws and following the rules, then shouldn't be any problem.
Legal counsel for the city says it could be another 30 days before they get this idea back in front of the city council. However, Councilwoman Ballard says she's optimistic this could happen before the end of summer. In Delano, Brock Wilson, 12 News.